obligatory checklist. So let me read this statement. As chair of the Timberlane Regional School District Budget Committee Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. There is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by audio and video utilizing a Zoom webinar platform where all members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during the meeting, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and view by logging into www.timberlane.net/ZoomBudCom. B, we have given notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. This information has been provided along with the agenda and posted to the board's website at www.timberlane.net. C, we have provided a phone number for the public to alert this public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. That phone number is 603-382-6541, extension 3955. D, we will adjourn the meeting and reschedule if the public is unable to access the meeting. Additionally, all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We will begin the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When members state their presence, they must also state whether there is anyone in the room with them during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. So with that, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Let's say before we do roll call, let's have Peter lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I was hoping you wouldn't say that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Two.
Okay. All right. Next, if we could do the roll call, please.
Christy Eclair,
I am alone in the room, but there are other people in my house.
Peter Belo,
Hi, I'm here. I'm alone in the room, but there is another person in the house.
Brian Boyle,
I am here. I am alone in the room, and there are other people in the house.
Alan David, Kathleen Gorman, Julie Hammond, Michael Mascola,
I am here and I am alone in the house.
Todd McCormick,
I am here. I am alone in the room, but there are other people in the house.
Sue Sherman,
I'm here. I'm alone in the office, but there are other people in the house.
and Phil Sherwood.
I'm here. I'm alone in the room. There are other family members in the house.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Next, let's move on to approval of the October 8th, 2020 minutes. Take a little bit to read through them if you will. If you've already read through them, that's fine. We'll just give some folks time that haven't had a chance yet. And if someone would like to make a motion. to
Make the
accept
motion.
minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All right, then let's do a roll call for accepting the minutes.
Christy Eclair,
Yes.
Peter Belo,
Yes.
Brian Boyle,
Yes.
Michael Mascola,
Yes.
Todd McCormick,
Yes.
Sue Sherman,
Yes.
Phil Sherwood.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Great. Okay. Moving on. Next on the agenda, do we have any correspondence, Jeff?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, that was quick. I love how you always put 5 minutes in there. I know that's standard, but all right. Now, so delegations and individuals. We have made it possible for anyone in the public to join and comment. So we welcome that. So I'm going to go ahead and see if there's anyone you use the little thing to put your hand up, and if you'd like to join in and address this committee, then now is your chance. And I do not see anyone. So we will move to the next thing on the agenda. Next up is administrative report. That would be Jeff or Dr. Cochran.
That would be Jeff this evening.
I was going to say I defer to Dr. Cochran. So nothing too much to report from the administrative side. You will see the special education census report, I believe, in your packet that the history report in your packet. And beyond that, I think everything's quiet.
Okay. All right. Well, and thank you for adding that into the agenda, Jeff. Look forward to seeing that. Let's go ahead and move on to reports of committees. Budget committee members, that would be, at this point, just Sue for the CIP committee.
We have not met. We have a meeting planned November 4th, right, Brian, I believe?
Correct.
Working on that, getting that number together for the school board and then for you guys, for this board as well.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Sue. Next would be the school board report, and that is going to be you, Mr. Boyle.
Yeah, well, let me think here. What can I report tonight? Okay, let's see. Well, actually, yeah, our last meeting was at the PAC. Trying to breakfast in my head here now. Dr. Cochran, do you think of anything here that that stood out here in our school board meeting last week?
We discussed the plan to bring all students back in a fair amount of detail. From the budget committee's perspective, we're looking at some significant expenses related to the COVID situation. We're trying to manage those and find some ways to reduce that. We have found out recently that as the FEMA money that was originally promised was taken away, we will be receiving some money from I believe it's from the state, $200 per student, which would give us somewhere in the range of, we've got about 3,300 students. So that's about $600,000, which will certainly help. But we do have some significant needs if we're going to move forward and be able to implement a plan to bring all students back. Those of you who are familiar with the plan may know that we have a grid that puts, where we are in terms of students' safety and welfare and employee safety and welfare as well. And the local Rockingham County numbers put us closer to we're in the hybrid range, but we're closer to moving to fully remote than we are to moving all back. So the numbers are escalated pretty consistently over the last multiple weeks. There is on the district website, Mr. Peterson gives us a daily update on that. Locally, we're not in too bad a shape, but within the county, the numbers are escalating pretty high, and we're just about to the point where our own metrics say, we're still within the hybrid range, but barely.
Well done.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Cochran.
Most welcome.
All right, so moving on to unfinished business. So Sue had requested the out-of-district placements report, a 5-year history. I know it says Sherman next to it, but I think we're going to rely on Jeff to carry us through that.
Thank you for putting my name in shouty capitals, Jeff.
I assume there wouldn't be any confusion, so I assume you can all see my screen as well.
Yes.
Yes, so the 5-year report gets a bonus by being now a 6-year report. And you'll see that we have placements by level pre-K to 8 and then 9 to 12, ranging from the 14-15 year to the 19-20 year. These numbers are really for a total number of outside placements, excluding collaborative placements as of October 1st for the BOI report. So what this is measuring is, or are those students, and when I say collaborative, that means that in some cases we may have a student who is placed by another district that we may have financial responsibility for. We may have a student who is placed pursuant to perhaps a settlement, or judgment, or something to that effect that isn't always captured in these numbers. So as you can see, the numbers from 14-15 in total ramp up from pretty even 19, 15, 16, 19, and then 16, 17, 20. And then ease on up to 24, 26, and 30 through the 19-20 year. I caution on the collaborative aspect of it because there is a little bit of a risk in trying to draw a direct correlation between our outside placements per the schedule and actual outside placement expenditures, if that's a good way to put it. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on the schedule.
I don't think that's a good way to put it. I'm not sure that's clear. So I asked for this because that huge increase, that huge overage, I wanted to have the budget committee see some numbers to help them understand that huge jump. Now, I understand we don't control how much any placement charges, but the collaborative students, I think is important because this 30 is not the total number. Is that correct?
Correct.
Right. So it's probably closer to 50 that we're paying for. Is that right?
I don't think the number is that high. No.
Okay.
But that's what we're trying to get at, Jeff.
45, 46. I'm trying to help the budget committee understand why that number is so much bigger. That's all I wanted from the very beginning. I don't need to talk about the philosophy of why we place them, who placed them, which court, which decision. I just want, and I hate to say this, a body count. What's the body count? And I believe it's higher than 30, but I thank you for this effort. I knew what the 14-15 numbers were. 19 is pretty much including the collaborative number because we didn't have a lot of court. I'm using my information that I was on the board then. But now that's a big jump. That's to me, that's almost doubling the placements in 5 years. I realize we have a new special ed director and I realize kids change, that the kids change as we go along, but I just wanted the board to know why that number had jumped that much money-wise.
Would it be useful to have perhaps a listing of, I guess it would reflect more financial responsibility, how many students we would have financial responsibility for?
Yes.
Okay, we can do that. I told you this was a little bit of a tricky request because we have numbers that are reported outside of the district at the state level. We have numbers that are already out, that have already been circulated out through NESDEC reports and that sort of thing. And so I want to make sure that the definition of what it is that we're looking at is clear. And if I can provide more insight into it with the financial responsibility, and you know what, so you could be right. It could be along the lines of 49 if you look at it in that capacity. So if I can bring that number back for you, we understand that's the number that we'll be looking at. I'm more than happy to do that.
Jeff, is Compass part of that? The Compass program, is that in that number?
Shouldn't be.
Compass would not be considered an outside placement, right?
Not a, it's a program, Brian, but it's not an outside placement. So I
Mhm.
understand, but I don't know where the Compass numbers would show, or the other money wise, not the numbers of kids, but
It's part of special ed though.
yeah, but that particular line that I was referring to is the out of district placement tuition. What this school system is paying by mandate, we have no choice, to put children in the best place they can be for their education. You know, the least restrictive, all of those positive things. And I want that for kids, but I just wanted the committee to understand the amount of money. It's very, very, very expensive. Okay, thank you, Jeff. Anything else you could do to enlighten us? I personally would appreciate it. And if I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut up, Todd.
May I,
No,
Todd?
you're not. And maybe when do we have that on our? I could go pull up the last packet where we agreed on the presentations. But is that at the next meeting, Jeff?
It's later, yeah,
It's one of the later meetings. Yeah,
the
I'll
12th.
pull up the schedule.
Maybe we could get a little more clarity on that and associate some dollars to it when we have that presented to us.
Fantastic.
Is that fair?
Sure.
Todd, can I ask a quick question?
Of course.
Great. Thank you Susan, for getting the ball rolling on these things. It is a big number. And I'm just curious, Jeff, you may not have the hard numbers, and I'm at like sort of anecdotal opinion. I know that the need and necessity for special ed is growing nationally, and Timberlane doesn't exist in a vacuum. That being said, do you have a sense, and I don't like using the word victim, but Timberlane, I think in some regards we've been a victim of our own success. We've had such quality programs that there is some question as to whether we become a destination for some folks who need these services because we're so good at providing them. That being said, some of these numbers, do you get a sense that it's consistent with what other districts are experiencing? In the end, we have to fund it, that's fine, but just trying to understand the context of it a little bit. Can you share your opinion on that? And I know you might not have the hard numbers, but just your general opinion.
I think you'd see I think you'd see a trend generally where these numbers are going up, the needs are becoming greater. I think that the needs are becoming much more involved, and districts are seeing, and I'll say seeing value in outside placements due to the fact that it is just so difficult in some cases to provide the education needed for certain populations of any district, while also being able to keep our staff safe. And I think that you'll see that that's a trend. I don't know that your assessment, I don't have any quantitative data that would suggest that we're a destination district, but I don't know that your assessment would be incorrect generally, that perhaps if we do a good job, we become a draw for the excellence of the program. So I'll leave it at that, but I do see that trends generally continue to go up, and these needs become more intense. And I'll point out that it is difficult to really quantify the cost for outside placements. And I don't want to make it overly difficult, but it is something that we may have a placement that is for a year. We can have a placement that's for a semester where we're able to bring the student back in. We may have a student who moves in late in the year. We may have a placement that may be a 45-day placement to address some immediate needs that we can then bring that student back into the district. And I said initially that this was a real tricky number to come up with. It's more of an FTE view than it is sort of a hard number, if you will. That doesn't change the fact that whether we're placing a student out for an entire year, whether we are ordered perhaps by a court to place a student out for an entire year, or we're doing a shorter term placement, all of those numbers seem to be increasing. All of those occurrences seem to be increasing in recent years. So it really wouldn't matter necessarily if it's a short term, long term, year long. yeah, they all seem to be trending up a bit. It's just how do you adequately capture those? Because if you say, you know, well, we had one student that was placed out, well, that's one for the year. If we had one student that was placed out for 45 days, that's lessening. If we had one student that was placed for a month at the end of the year because they moved to the district, we had one student that was placed at the beginning of the year because they were able to be reintegrated into the district. Those are all factors to consider. All of those seem to be really going up, though. We really seem to be.
Those, let's say those 4 that you used as illustrations, those 4 children all cost different amounts of money. And I wanted that to help us be reflective of the amount of money we were over in that line, 780,000 or 750,000. That, you know, that 45-day placement, Phil, may cost as much as putting a child in a program where they're there for 5 months. It depends on this child and the needs educationally, emotionally, and socially. We want to put them in a safe placement, and it's the way the money goes. So that's what I wanted, Jeff. I wasn't interested in, these kids were gone for 42 days and these were gone for a month and these were, no, I wanted, okay, keep counting. Every kid counts to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think the perspective is good too, and I appreciate the idea that we can shine some light on the multifaceted nature of that line. You know, that it's not just one student, not a particular student for a year multiplied by the number of students we have. There are a lot of different factors in there, and certainly that seems to be a trend generally. So
would you say, I'd have to go and look, are we under budgeting this on a yearly basis? Is that what you're seeing, Sue?
I believe we are. I believe somebody underestimated that line. I mean, if you looked at this chart, if there were 26 kids placed the previous year, all right, 4 kids made that budget line go over by 77,000, 77, I can't even say the number, it scares me so much. What happened? So yeah, we may be underfunding that line. People have mentioned that before, that we underfunded that line. We, the big we, you know.
I will note that, so it's a very interesting perspective, because I believe last year we were really way over budget, and the year before that we were way under budget, and it almost seemed like it was a swing where we really tried to bring it back in line with some optimism, let's just say. And you know, we may count on a net. If we have a couple kids move in, maybe we'll have a student move out. So if we plan on maybe 4 potential move-ins, maybe in need of these services, we'll plan on perhaps 1 move out for a net of 3. But I know last year we had a situation that we didn't experience those move outs basically. And so there was really quite a swing, and it's very difficult. And that's why this is one of the later budgets we presented, because the further along we are in the year, the more detail that we have relative to the potential placements.
Right. And
I will share with the the committee, it was very ironic. A certain sister district had not that many years ago a favorable budget variance to their entire budget based on a move out.
One family.
Yep. So that was among that's the impact that it can have.
Yeah.
That it actually was a noteworthy contributor to that favorable budget line, and to the budget overall. I think the budget overall was the bigger piece. It was attributable directly to that. Flip that around, and you don't have the move out, you have the move in with no net move outs. You end up in a situation we were in last year.
Mm-hmm. Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
Todd, could I interject here on this budget discussion?
Sure.
Just as the board.
Welcome, Kim.
Welcome. Sorry, I did ask Jeff if I could attend, but I just want to say.
Oh, I know.
For the special ed, we did hire a consultant to look at why we are trending so fast upward, and she's assisting our people right now. So we are aware, and I think when Sue was on the board, I requested a 5-year spending trend because it was so concerning seeing it go up year by year. So the board is aware and is trying to look at why we are seeing such increases year on year.
Are you able to say if the consultant is examining or comparing and contrasting similar districts and us?
Dr. Cochran can answer that question, I'm sure.
I just wanted to give, before we get to that, some general background. Nationally and regionally and at the state level, all the trends are going up for special education. It wasn't too many years ago that we were like 15.6, 15.8% identified students. The state average is now closer to 18.8. I think last year's was, just off the top of my head. We last year were, I think, 22% free identified students. In some cases, there's a trend between the percentage of free and reduced lunch students and special education, sometimes not. We run about 13 and last year's numbers are about 13.5% free and reduced lunch, which is about half the state average of 28. But again, we're above the state average for identified students. Reasons for that, we don't know. The board did approve $10,000 earlier this year to bring in Jane Bergeron. Jane used to run the special education department at Ceresc. Now she's the executive director of the Special Ed Administrators Association. I've actually brought her in for consults in prior districts. I've known her for a long time. We're looking at the larger picture. One of the issues is in terms of our trending, patterns. Where are we in terms of our programs? Where are we in terms of our capacity? Where are we in terms of the services that we're delivering? And where do we need to make improvements? And we're looking at it not just from the delivery of special education services, but also in terms of how it relates to quality of instruction. And so when we look at quality of instruction does impact the percentage of students who can be identified. So we're looking at this through a fairly broad lens to try and benefit students, but also how do we work more proactively to try and find ways to keep students being successful in classrooms and helping them educationally. So we're looking at the cost side, we're looking at the educational benefit side, and in general, we're trending up and perhaps trending up a little bit more than the rest of the state. So that confirms a good chunk of the stuff that Jeff just described.
Much more eloquently put, Dr. Cochran. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cochran.
Welcome.
Okay, any other discussion on this? All right, we are going to move on to new business now. We have a slew of presenters, and it looks like first up on the docket is going to be Mr. Fantasia for the athletics budget presentation. Welcome, Mr. Fantasia.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing well. Just wanted to highlight some of the budget summary sheets and areas in our lines in the athletic departments. You'll see some increases and some decreases. One of the increases comes in the game expense line of both middle school and high school. And it's important to note that the officials' fees at all levels and all sports are going to go up by $2 a game next year. So we know that in advance. We're also going to get an increase in our police details at our games. So we know those in advance. Also, in extracurricular activities, we've been talking about this for a few years. Obviously, we are keeping our team uniforms up to date, and we do have a few that are up for next year that we know of, and that's field hockey and girls basketball. So we're going to make sure that we are taking care of that and staying on schedule. In our information access fee line, you're going to see an increase for a couple of things. First, program called Adventi, which we use in our health curriculum for substance abuse prevention. That was in a different area of the Timberlane budget, but it is in our budget now, which it should be. It's in the health curriculum. So that is an increase. As well as this year, we are getting the new cameras from the National Federation of High Schools that we're going to be able to live stream more of our games. And thankfully, we've gotten a lot of help from Dean Zanello right now in the tech department and trying to live stream as many events as we can for the public with the COVID pandemic. But there is a live stream subscription fee that we are going to put into the budget so that it does not cost the community any money as far as a subscription fee. So that's an added cost in the access line. We also have some decreases in our lines. One of the larger decreases, I'll skip down a little bit so that I'm not boring you. You can read things. But in our replacement equipment at the high school athletics, there's a decrease of $9,000. And if you'll remember that we are replacing the banners this year for a good problem. We are running out of room to put banners up on the gym walls. So we are going to get individual team banners with the years. So that was in this year's budget. So we're taking care of that. So there's a significant decrease in that line. Transportation is an annual 3% increase. So that's where that piece comes. And then another piece at the middle school for replacement equipment, we have our ropes courses and our elements that are in the middle school gym, and through our assessment, we know that we have to replace a few of those ropes. So that's kind of where that is. All told, in the total request, we're looking at a request increase of $3,470.50 in the overall athletic department budget. So, any questions or? Thank you.
Nope, I think I was on mute. If anyone has any questions for Angelo, please feel free.
Okay, sorry, I asked out of turn.
That's okay.
Congratulations on I hear you guys had a big win the other night, an upset on field hockey. Well done.
It was amazing. And it was one of those games where we scored in the first minute and it stood. I don't know too many times that those stand, but the girls have been great. The kids, I have to tell you, the kids and the coaches have been fantastic. You know, it's a tough time, but we're all just doing the best we can, and just having the kids out there and seeing them smile it's the best. So thank you.
Todd, before you move on, I did want to point out to you that, and to the committee as well, that tried something a little bit different this time, which is to try and just highlight in the budget reports that follow the budget summaries where the lines are that we would be speaking to in the summaries themselves. So Maria has a good eye. Maria Watkins, the Assistant Business Administrator, has a great eye for this. And even if we internally have highlighted these in the past for our own purposes, I hope the committee finds it helpful to have them highlighted to be able to tie a little bit easier to what you see on the budget summary to what's actually in the department report. So that's a little bit of a change going forward.
Yeah, I did notice that, Jeff, and I like that.
Good.
I like that. Okay, thank you, Angelo. Moving on, we're going to go to the music budget, and welcome Tony to the dance.
Oh, you're going to let me lead? I hope so. Thanks for inviting me to the dance.
You're going to conduct.
I'm going to conduct. All right.
That's right.
All right.
Please conduct us.
That's awesome. Well, listen, thank you. I'm going to do basically what my colleague, Mr. Fantasia, did, is go down the differences. And we've got, okay, is that? All right, so we've got some decreases. I guess we're starting with those. That's awesome. And the first one is instrument repair, and all of this is just, based on last year's, and actually really not on last year's expenditures, based on the year prior, based on the expenditures there, because last year was certainly anything but normal. So based on the prior years, I feel comfortable in taking $1,900 out of that repair account. And I think we'll be able to satisfy all of our needs. And the same type of thing in the supply account, based on the past expenditures and anticipated needs. The $1,700, that's the supply account, and that's just again, based on previous expenditures, based on the pulse of what we needed and what we got, and we could suit the needs and still come down. Same thing with the $1,000 decrease in the 640 account. Let's see. 640. Oh, that's the book account. Yeah. Books accounts for the elementary programs, based on participation. That's what that is. And again, the support activities coming down $2,500. That's for just piano accompanists and guest artists and things like that to support the concerts and presentations for the kids, based on, again, not last year but the year before, what we spent, what we wanted and what we spent. We can do that. We can live with that. And the two areas that did go up is in the 650 account, which is a software account. Is that next, or what are we doing here? Yeah, thanks.
There you are.
Yep, the 650 account, it's a $4,500 account. And I know this won't come as a surprise to any of you, but the two major software programs that we use for the students, they went up in price. And unbeknownst to me, when I formulated this budget, because it did it over the summer, or anyway, you get the idea. It went from a price of $40 for teachers and $12 for students, from that to $40 per teacher to $20. Doesn't sound like much, but we're buying 500 different subscriptions with an $8 difference. So it costs more, and we're just planning for that same number in that account. The other software is a Quaver account. I don't know if I said that. So that was Smart Music. Smart Music is for grades 5 through 12, instrumentally and vocally. The Quaver, we're getting two accounts, two subscriptions for that. I've been requested by faculty, and that's for the elementary classroom teacher. And those are great programs, and especially in the current mode that we're in. And the other increase was in, the 733. Where's that? Anyway, 733, there's a $4,000 increase, and that is just for new instruments. And am I following it correctly here? 737 is for replacement instrument. That is for uniforms and a few instruments, but basically uniforms. We've been trying on a continual basis to replace and repair, and that comes out of another budget, but to replace those uniforms that need replacing on an annual budget. So we spent a couple of thousand, not necessarily every year, but to keep that up to date. We've got an inventory of about 700 uniforms for every student, grade 9 through 12, and some of them accept two different uniforms. So we keep those up to date to avoid a massive expenditure of high, good six-figure expenditure. So that's been successful over the last many years. And did I miss something? I don't think so.
Get everything or almost everything, Tony, so.
I think I hit everything, yeah. So unless there are questions, I'd be glad to try to answer them.
So thank you, Tony. I have one. So you know, obviously everyone's hard hit in different ways through all this, but I've been pretty curious at how this is all going with the music program. I mean, you're doing a lot more remote than you probably ever did. I have kids that have all gone through your music program, and I know it required a lot of in-person, and that's not really possible anymore. So how is that all working? And outside of just marching band, what's the plan for all the amazing concerts that you've been able to do, and you know, just all really in general, a lot of the performances that have always come out of the Performing Arts Center?
Yeah, I would love to. Oh, I didn't realize I was so dark, but that's all right. You know what I look like. Sorry. Yeah, I wish I could sit here and tell you exactly. I know what we're going to do and when we're going to do it and who we're going to do it with. But I can't. We're going to do, I can tell you, my staff is working incredibly diligently, and they're really doing everything they possibly can to deliver the absolute best instruction in a very tough situation. You know, we've got 3 cohorts that we need to deliver services to, the people that are there half the time, and then people that are fully remote. And we're trying to deliver similar services and know that it's really a mission impossible. As far as the concerts, I don't know what we're going to do. We've got several contingency plans, but I'll kind of answer that. If you guys can answer, you know, are we going to be in school in the next 2 weeks? Is the 6-foot distancing still, well, I know, but you know, is the 6-foot distancing still going to be an enforcement? And if it is, it's a real problem. I can't fit the very large. We have the largest classes in the district, you know, everything from 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And when you take 100 kids and try to space them out 6 foot apart, there's not enough square footage in the entire back for that. And there's certainly not enough square footage on the stage. Chorus is 80, you know, orchestra is 60. I just can't physically do it. So, I mean, we're exploring and maybe putting the kids in the seats where the audience usually sits and be able to spread them out that way, and then try to put something together. But, you know, if you've been involved with that with students or been involved with it yourself, you know that the complexity of that is really going to be a challenge, but we're doing it. We've opened up over the last 3 weeks, you know, after school, so we can put all 3 cohorts together at a 6-foot spacing. And the students are wearing masks, and, you know, the instruments, by the way, are wearing masks to inhibit the dispersion of virus if it happens to reside in that horn. And we're trying anything and everything we can to just get them together and do that. You know, we've got smart music, we've got Quaver, we've got the technology, but it's a real challenge, you know, and the concerts may be our biggest challenge, to be really honest. I don't know what, I mean, again, we've got some contingencies, and if we're in class straight from now until December, you know, we might be able to pull something off by putting the ensemble in the audience and then doing it. Obviously, we would do it Senza audience, real audience, so the parents wouldn't be invited. But the important thing is that the students get a performance opportunity, whether it's in music or drama or athletics. You know, that's the important thing, that they have a performance thing. And I know, anyway, I'll stop there. But so that's what, you know, we've been thinking about it. We've been talking about it to make it happen. You know, it's going to be anything but normal. And we would like to have it happen. It's great having the kids back. I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Fantasia. The kids have been fantastic. You know, I have not asked one kid, and that is the truth, to put your mask on. I've not had to ask one kid, because they sanitize their hands when they walk into my room, and they sanitize their hands and their stand and their chair when they leave. And it takes all of 15 seconds. We're not wasting, you know, 40, 50 minutes doing it. And it's getting a shorter time every time they do it. I'll stop. I know that wasn't the answer that you were looking for, Todd, but we're going to try to do something.
No. That's perfect.
Yeah, and
that's perfect. And I know Dr. Cochran had a.
I was just wondering, Tony.
Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah. I was just wondering, Tony, if the budget committee is aware of the software that we have that allows us to lay down audio tracks with individual students and then combine them to create a performance out of it. I really enjoyed Tony's description when I've been able to meet a couple of times and talk about, moving forward, both the PAC and the programs, and just super thrilled to be a part of this. It's a great program. Our folks do a great job, and we have a lot of talented kids who are musicians and athletes and scholars and the whole thing. I mean, the percentage of top caliber kiddos that we have in a lot of fields is really high. And Tony and his group do a great job, and just super pleased to be part of that.
Is that what the additional software was on top of Smart Music? Quaver?
I think that's a question for Tony, right?
It is, yeah. Is that what he's talking about? Dr. Carpenter's talking about, Tony?
I think he's frozen.
I think you're breaking up a little bit on us. Right. Are we all frozen, or is it just Tony? He's gone. All right. The beauty of doing these meetings. Oh, there he is.
He's coming on for an encore.
He is. Tony, you're still frozen. Oh, there you go.
Okay. If you asked about Quaver is for K through 5 classroom instruction, and it really puts together a variety of learning modes visually,
Okay.
and it's a great use, especially in this mode. But it's good use when they're all in class. But it's a great use in this mode.
What's the software that Dr. Cochran was talking about, where you can have ensembles virtually?
Actually, it's all the Adobe software suite that the district owns. The only thing we may have to add is some hardware because of the rendering and the transference when we put 20 or 30 different tracks. It's an audio and a visual software that allows you to assemble all the tracks from kids and then present. It's what we did last year, but we hired an outside company to do it. Now I've had the tech director from the Performing Arts Center to investigate that. He's been experimenting with it and working with it. So we're going to do that in-house if that's one of our performance opportunities, and it very well may be, no matter what we do. But we're able to do that in-house. And we spent thousands last year doing it because we didn't know it existed or have the ability to do it. But now we're going to be able to do it in-house with all of our groups.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. And while we have you, if I could just indulge you one more question. I know, from an early age, we try to encourage these kids to do private lessons. It really has bolstered the music program, for decades. How's that being handled? Are those happening remotely? Are we doing private lessons?
Yes, we're doing private lessons just like we're doing this meeting. And I get the link for every one of our private lessons, and I'm not going to tell you I watch all of them, but I sneak into most of them. And I'll tell you, we've got some people who really do an outstanding job delivering one-on-one instruction. I wish we could all deliver one-on-one, but you can't do that. But the one-on-one instruction in Skype is, or Zoom actually, not Skype, is a great way to do it. And so we've got about a half a dozen, 8, I think, teachers that are delivering Zoom lessons, and it still goes through our program. There are kids and our teachers. So they've all been, they would have been in person, but now they're doing it that way, and they're doing a great job.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Phil, did you have a question?
No, actually just a comment. And that is, obviously music is very communal, and the technology can be expensive, and I understand why it's going up in cost, but I've seen firsthand, both my kids are remote. Even before we went remote, the value of this technology blew my mind. I mean, I went to music school, so I'm predisposed to being judgmental of technology when it comes to the arts. But this year in particular, my kids would not have received really, I'm just incredibly impressed in how your staff has adapted to this new normal. And it's not the same as being in person, but my son's got a lot of value thanks to the technology and the educators that actually know how to implement it. It's really expensive, but it's not one of those expensive things that just collects dust on a shelf. I know it's being used every single day, and I'm very impressed by it.
Yeah, you would know. I mean, you're seeing it from two different ends, but it really is a great use. And in this mode, it's almost invaluable. It's really been great. And thank you for the compliment. I think the staff is working incredibly hard to pull off, the best out of this situation. I am in their class all the time, and I'm in their Zoom class too, but they're all doing great. I think everyone's really, really doing the best they possibly can. So thanks, Phil.
Fantastic. Anyone else with any comments? Okay, go ahead.
Hey, Todd, if I may, I'm not going to play anything, but these the videos of what Tony is talking about, what everything everyone's been referring to, are available on the Timberlane Regional School Vimeo video channel, and you can see Project Pippin is up there, and I believe that'd be an example of what Tony was talking about. It really is, we really done quite a bit in the district, and it's important to recognize the efforts that all of our administrators have taken in trying to make the environment as normal as possible for all of our students, and we've had to do that in some creative ways. So I certainly appreciate the efforts in the past, and Tony, I appreciate your being able to do that going forward with the software that we have. So thank you.
Yep, thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Are we good, gentlemen and ladies?
I think we're good, Tony. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good night. Sorry for the internet being so flaky.
What are you gonna do?
I know.
All right.
I have to go watch a debate.
I had that happen with the 3 kids in my house today. It was awesome.
There we go. All right.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a good night. So next up on our agenda, we're going to move on to the presentation from Timberlane Regional Middle School budget presentation.
Good evening.
And hello.
Flaky internet is going to be the new term for 2020, I think. I appreciate Mr. D coining that. That's really great. Thank you guys for having me this evening. For those of you that I haven't met, I'm Megan Kelker, the principal at the middle school. I hope these crazy days find you and your family well. It was actually helpful to begin to think about next year's budget as we are sort of entwined in these current goings on. So it was nice to think ahead. Thanks to Maria and to Jeff and to Diana Elwell at the middle school for helping me put these numbers together. As you'll notice, we do have a decrease to the overall budget for the middle school for a couple of particular reasons. So I'll run through them for you. You'll notice the first decrease is on our language arts line. We have had chamber theater coming to our performing arts center for years. I taught at the middle school for 13 years, and I think I saw them all of those 13 years. Though a wonderful program, doesn't quite fit in with our newly designed curriculum. So we wanted to take it out, but have committed to looking into some other opportunities for our ELA students, whether they be in-house at the PAC or perhaps off campus if we return to a time where that's an option. So that's our first decreased line. Secondly, you'll see a large decrease through IXL pre-algebra. That is an online platform. It's an all digital adaptive math tool that our teachers have been using. It's paid through 2022. It's diagnostics, progress assessment, RTI support, and again, it's paid through 2022. So it looks like we'll be having a conversation about this again if it remains a useful tool to our teachers, not until the 22-23 budget. Also a decrease in our replaced equipment line. When I spoke with you last year, we were coming into this year being year 3 of implementing flexible seating options at the middle school. That prior administration sort of put into place, something that I was lucky enough to take part in as an educator in our building. But we are at the point now where we're willing to take a pause and to see where we are in terms of furniture and what we need, especially given that that a lot of our current furniture is in storage as we, manipulate our classroom settings to accommodate for the current times. So we did leave some money in that budget line, but the $12,746 was specific around flexible seating that we agreed to over a 3-year plan. So 21, 22 would be year 4. Replaced equipment, Mr. Fantasia spoke about that in replacement ropes for the courses for the middle school. So that was an increase. You'll see a decrease in periodicals. We've had less students reading magazines, but part of that is due to the fact that they're accessing so much of their material online. So that decrease is offset with an equal increase to increase student demand for ebooks and audiobooks. Our library staff has done an amazing job at getting books into the hands or the computer screens or devices of students, if you will. So that cost offset. And then you'll see a decrease as working with our librarians. There was no new audiovisual equipment needed moving forward for 21-22. Again, we want to be respectful of our budget. So we can always use funds, but again, we wanted to be transparent and agreeable to what we talked about in terms of the 3-year plan for flexible seating. And again, IXL is purchased through 2023. So that leaves us with a decreased budget at the middle school for 21-22 of just over $29,000. It's the fastest summary I've ever done. Any questions that I can answer?
I'll open that up for anyone else. First of all, that's quite a reduction, and I'm sure the taxpayers appreciate that. The flexible seating, I get it, right? Like we need real estate, we need space, and we kind of I do subscribe to that philosophy that helps different learners learn in different ways, but right now we just need to figure out how to get the learners in the classrooms, right?
Right now, if we could be like floating learners, if we could just suspend ourselves in the air, perhaps we'd have no issues with this 3 to 6 feet. But no, and I agree with you, Mr. McCormick. I spent a lot of time in graduate school researching flexible seating options and how we can cater to our learners. And I do think it's a really wonderful opportunity that we have at the middle school. And like I said, we have some that we're purchasing this year as well. And again, a lot of stuff's in storage and coming out of storage. So the nice part about that is it'll give us next year to sort of figure out what we have and what we want to do with it and what's best. And maybe next year at this time, I'll be talking to you guys about some gaps that we could fill for that seating. But like you said, it is a big chunk of money, and we feel confident that we have what we need at this time.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Megan? All right, Megan, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Stay well, everyone. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you as well. Next up, we are going to go to the technology budget with Mr. Henderson.
Good evening, everyone. Hope everybody is doing well. Thank you for having me tonight. So as
you've been less busy. You've been less busy during
I've
COVID,
got
right?
nothing going on at all. I've been bored, so looking for things to do. Actually, Todd, we had some issues this morning as well. So I wonder if it was a localized internet issue with Danville going on. So and it's fun being tech director.
Well, I rebooted my router, and then everything seemed to come back online okay.
Well, it sounds like I could deputize you as a tech, just knowing that. If you reboot it and it doesn't work, then Google it. All right, so
a lot of people were mad at me when I did that, but you gotta take the hit on the chin for a couple minutes in order to refresh everything.
You got to take the downtime if you want it to come back in full. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So as is every year, I have the pleasure of preparing and presenting 2 budgets for you. I have technology and I have business services. So it looks like Jeff has technology up here. There is an increase, as you can see there, of $13,741 over last year. So I'm going to go down the different lines here and talk about the changes of $1,000 a year, either an increase or decrease. The first line here is 643, which is info access fees. And really the increase here is all due to COVID accommodations. I do want to mention that my mode of operation here in presenting this budget is that remote still may be a thing next year. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, of course. I think we're all, that's a very, it's a very real possibility that we're still going to be in some sort of remote operation. So I budgeted as such. So I just want to put that out there. And that's why we have an increase in this particular line, because I budgeted things such as Zoom, and Kami is a application that turns PDFs into editable documents in Google Classroom, especially helpful for math. And we also increased the number of Chromebooks, going from 650 to 750 next year. The Chromebooks are, of course, an equipment line item, but the Google license, there's a one-time Google license fee that applies to each Chromebook. It gets put into this line. It's roughly $23 to $25 a Chromebook. Again, that's a one-time fee per Chromebook. We pay for it out of this line. I'm increasing the number of Chromebooks from 650 to 750 as we go one-to-one district-wide, K through 12 now. We had a decrease of 2,500 in line 650, which is software. We found some better Adobe licensing terms, so that was the resulting savings there. Line 734, new equipment and computers, is down almost 12,000. Reason being is that we had some one-time projects that we budgeted for in 1920, which are done, and that included the PAC projector, which coincidentally just went in today. Actually, they got the brand new laser projector in the PAC, so next time you're in there and they're projecting something, you're going to notice a huge difference in the quality of the projector. Being laser, it also doesn't use a bulb, so there's nothing to replace or burn out on it. We also budgeted for the Microsoft, MS, got Microsoft on the mind, Middle School Cafe audio video project, which is actually, it's not completed yet. We received bids. I am still planning on doing that, but I'm kind of holding the money with everything that's going on this year. I may elect to do that next year, but right now I am counting on doing that this year. So that's assuming we do it this year, which is the probability. We will not need to do that next year, of course. 738 is replacement computer and equipment, and that is down almost 7,000, and that is due to this year we purchased brand new firewalls for the district, the 7 schools in the SAU. That was a one-time cost that got completed in 1920. So the resulting, with that being done, we do not need to obviously do that next year. So the net change was down almost 7,000. And that wraps up the major changes in technology. I don't know if there's any questions around that, or if you want me to go on and do business services now, Todd, and take all the questions at the end. It's committee's pleasure.
Yeah, I think that's okay. That's a good idea.
All right, so business services, moving on. We do have, you can see a substantial increase here, $54,880 rather. And I'll explain the reason for that going down the lines here. The first is in line 430, which is data proc maintenance. Last year, toward the latter half of 1920, we installed a brand new video surveillance system, which was largely funded by a grant. In all 7 schools in the SAU, we have roughly now 170 or 175 cameras in that vicinity, which is a dramatic increase in the number of cameras we used to have in the old system. This new system is IP-based. It stores to the cloud versus old-fashioned DVRs. It's high definition cameras, where the old analog ones were low definition. So this system is really 100% improved our video surveillance quality at the schools. But as such, being cloud-based, we are paying a yearly license fee per camera for that. And this is actually the first year we'll have that system. So I'm budgeting it for next year in full, obviously. And that is the resulting increase you see in that line. Line 643, info access fees. That is, again, due to COVID accommodations. That is, PandaDoc is, you've probably heard of DocuSign. This is a competitor of DocuSign. In the district went with this. It's not cheap, but it enables us to do online e-signatures, which is just, as you can imagine, in a remote scenario, is going to be huge. We've already rolled it out to HR and business services this past spring. We are currently enrolling special education to be able to do their documents as well with PandaDoc. And I think you saw in the budget sheets, there's an extra line that references that increase for special education for next year. So in addition to PandaDoc, we are also budgeting for Time Clock Plus now in my budget, where it used to be in the SAU lines. So that is, a significant increase in cost. It's really, I mean, Jeff might be able to explain this better, but it's really no, bottom line cost is the same. It's just that we're moving it from where it used to be in the SAU to our business services line item. But it bumps my budget up, as you can see. The flip side of that is in the next line, where line 650 is DataProc software, is that we would budget in Timberlane for the entire cost of Infinite Visions, which is our financial and human resources package. And then we would be reimbursed from SAU 55 in Hampstead after we purchased it. We're not doing, obviously there's no need to do any reimbursement next year. So it's just straight out Timberlane cost. The resulting, decrease is what you see based on that fact. And the final line there is line 738 is for, I guess I forgot to put in there, I apologize. That is replacement equipment and computers. And there is an increase of 6,000 for next year. The resultant increase of that is because we have more staff devices than ever. When we went remote, everybody needs a computer, everybody needs a Chromebook or whatever the case may be. We're covering paraprofessional now. We're covering custodians for them to be able to clock in with their own device. So this is why you see any resulting increases to cover those increased staff devices that we now have to support. So that was it for business services. Certainly take any questions if anybody had any.
Ken, are those Chromebooks that the staff is using as well?
Yeah, we're kind of moving that way, Todd, is we're moving away from laptops as much as possible to touchscreen Chromebooks for even teachers. And the reason we're able to do that is that last year we moved PowerSchool, the teacher version, from being a full-blown Windows client that they would have to install on a Windows laptop to being a web-based application that they can use. So with it being web-based now, there's no need for them to use a Windows laptop per se to run that. They can run it on any browser, including a Chromebook. So now we're able to, that was like the last major software package that was window-based that we were able to get rid of last year. So we're looking to move to Chromebooks, staff, for teachers and paraprofessionals, everybody. And they obviously they cost more, they're easy to maintain. So I think it makes fiscal sense to them.
And how's the bandwidth holding up? I'm sure you run tests all the time between all the schools. I know there was fiber. We had a lot of fiber, right? Are we at capacity or anywhere near it or what?
No, we're doing pretty good. We are 100% fiber in the district. Every school is fiber lit. And we did that in the summer of 18-19, I believe. It was a couple of years ago. And we monitor the capacity, daily, honestly. And the most we've seen is hitting 30-35% of capacity.
Oh, wow.
We have a really fat pipe at the high school and obviously smaller pipes at the elementary schools. We don't need as big as much bandwidth, but we're not touching that. That's not a bottleneck concern at this point. If I saw it hitting 60, 70%, I might I might want to up that a little bit. But right now, with us not even hitting 50% on a consistent basis, I'm not going to incur more costs on bandwidth if we don't need it. But the nice thing about having the fiber solution is it's just a phone call away. If we start, eventually we'll hit that probably. At the high school, we hit 60, 70%. I just call up Comcast Business. I say, let me put another couple hundred megs. And it's just a phone call.
Yep. And I watched, I don't know if it was the last school board meeting or the one before that. You addressed some of the folks in the different towns that were having trouble connecting, and we're doing whatever we can to help them make sure that their kids can connect when they're in areas that aren't great. How's that going? And I mean, is there much that we can even do? If you're in a place where you don't have a cell signal?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, Todd. We can certainly give knowledge on what some pointers would be around home Wi-Fi troubleshooting, and that's what we did. We sent out a message to everyone in the district. We posted it on our student and parent resource page. Some pointers on things to be on the lookout for if you're having issues with your internet connection. Simple things like, I talked to a couple families and they'd be like, the student would be up in their bedroom, which was up on the second floor. And, I asked them, well, where's your router? It's down in the basement. Okay, well, I know, and I don't know the layout of your house talking to them, but I'm like, if it's possible for them to get closer to that, that's probably going to be a much stronger signal for you. So it could be as simple as some things like that. In some cases, it's if it's a Comcast issue with wiring at the pole or in their house, that gets there's nothing, of course, the district can do. We don't have any visibility into that network to go in there and fix it. We can just simply advise them, and I have to families to call Comcast or Consolidated, and if you're having if you're having internet issues where you're dropping out a lot, give them a call, have their troubleshooting come out and take a look and see what they can do. But that's, other than those pointers, we have sent out, a few hotspots, Wi-Fi hotspots, and they're by Verizon, and they take the Verizon cell signal and turn it into a Wi-Fi signal. For families that are, in desperate need of having some sort of internet connection, but normally don't have any. We have sent those out in some cases to some families in need. But I put out there that it's even the lowest cost regular internet service is going to be a better quality than these hotspots. They get the test. If you've ever used one, it works, but it's, there's latency, it's slow. It's a kind of a last ditch effort, if you will, but we're certainly more than willing to send those out to families in need because we don't want to see them. I heard about one family that would have to drive to the library and, sit in their car to get on and do homework. And that's, that's heartbreaking, of course. You don't want anybody to have to resort to that. So we sent them out a hotspot, right away so that they could, and they got back to us and we're thankful they could, not have to go out now and for the kids to do their homework. So it's, right. Something we're offering, and as I get those, we'll send them out.
All right. Any other questions or comments for Ken while we have him? Well, for me personally, Ken, I'm just going to say I think you're doing a fantastic job. What a time to be in IT when the world is literally more dependent on it than ever. And I gotta say, I as a parent, I've, other than a glitch that I knew was on my end today, it's been going really well. And frankly, before I took a look at the budget packet, I thought the number was going to be much higher. I got to tell you, and I'm not. And if there's anyone who's going to come back and say, I need more, I wouldn't be surprised if it were you. The longer this thing gets sustained, but hopefully we're going the other way, and we don't have to rely on it quite as much. But thank you for everything you're doing, and I'm sure I speak for everyone to say you're doing a fantastic job.
I appreciate that, Todd. Thank you. It's certainly been interesting this year.
Yeah, I'm sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ken, and have a good night. We are going to move on to the final part of our new business, and that is the SAU School Board budget presentation. And that is also going to be, besides Brian, we are going to be joined by the chair of the school board, Dr. Farah. And I'm going to hand it over to the two of you to give us your tandem present. I don't know, whichever one of you is presenting. We'll listen and enjoy.
Brian, are you presenting this?
I thought that Jeff was presenting this.
Well, I'm
Or
happy
Jeff.
to I'm happy to kick things off. In fact,
Yes.
what I'd like to do preliminarily at least is explain to you what you have in your budget package for tonight and what it is that you see on your screen, which barely fits onto one screen. What I've done is we have this concept of the SAU, and so we're integrating the functions that are currently provided by the SAU 55 unit into the Timberlane budget. So what does that look like? And unfortunately, not all of the budgets not all of the numbers get captured into one line. If you recall, in the previous years, we would just have one number in our budget for SAU. So the SAU costs, as they're integrated into the Timberlane budget, go into a lot of different lines. You can see down below that they'll go into the 2321, 2511, 2831 accounts. Some funds are in some expenses are in the 2900, 2840 accounts. So the goal here is to present what we can present, and we don't have it, there's not really apples to apples, right? But what can we present from what is the SAU 2055-21 budget, which is this first column here? What does that entire budget look like? How is it broken up? What are the expense lines involved? And take and say, okay, what really would the Timberlane allocation budget expense line look like at 76.5%? So you'll see this column represents those numbers for perspective. And next you'll see the new SAU column, which is a draft of what those numbers would look like. I really have taken no liberty, I hope, with these. These have been with the school board as well. My goal here in presenting in this format is that we can see what it is that we have existing and what it would look like once integrated into next year's budget. You can see that there are some positions that are outlined. And again, it's not really apples to apples. We can't really say that a superintendent position with a potential budget of 176,000 allocated at 76.5% at 135 with a budget number of 150 actually results in a variance of 4879. It's not really apples to apples, but I think that this is at least a good point or a good start or a good perspective perhaps to have a discussion on what that budget would look like. A lot of these positions will end up in different functional lines. So I did want to at least let the board know that, or the committee know that that's what the school board is looking at, and that's what I'm presenting here for you. So, and these will be dispersed throughout the budget when the full budget is put together. So now they're all together. And quite frankly, after this year, you will probably never see a comparison like this again. You will continue to view, I'm sure, school board, just as you're doing right now. There'll be a department that we captioned SAU, there'll be an SAU department, which will be pretty much the superintendent line in a lot of those administrative functions that don't fit into regular ed, special education, or principal's office. So this will be for this year only. I would suggest what you do next year will be up to you, but I don't think you're going to be seeing this much in the future. You can see a lot of the positions that we have are listed and articulated. Some of the positions that have been proposed, for example, the lead accountant, not in the budget. That would be perhaps a business operations coordinator, which is really more of an assistant business administrator function, but a lot of the other positions should probably seem familiar to anyone who's familiar with the structure of the SAU. I really take no liberty, and really it's going to be up to the school board or the budget committee to come up with some personnel cost lines for me to be able to populate those functional lines in the budget. I did include here estimated FICA, retirement, insurance, In the SAU budget, we have a line called attrition contingency. And what that line was there for was to allow us to build up a little bit of a reserve to handle any employees who were retired or depart from the SAU, which would otherwise cause a blip or a bubble in the SAU budget. Timberlane is big enough that we were able to absorb a lot of those payouts through budget savings from the previous year's attrition. You'll also see a beginning fund balance. That's really just a balancing account here to help make the numbers tie to what everyone's familiar with seeing. Some of the expenses as you go down really don't carry over. So for example, audit, you're not going to have, Timberlane will be its own single district SAU next year. There will only be a need for one audit. So that, for example, has not projected out any expense. Whether you are a district with a budget of, let's say, 72 million, 73 million, and you add an additional 1.5 million to your budget, I don't think your audit expenses are going to go up, and that's going to be a theme going down this list. You can see school board expenses. We're in the SAU budget. Legal services, you can see that that line really wouldn't, we already have a legal services line in the school board budget. Maintenance of equipment, office rental, you wouldn't have. Now, some of these lines, like office rental, for example, we actually had revenue coming in. So SAU recognized an expense, but Timberlane actually recognized the revenue coming in. That was really straight revenue going into Timberlane. I'm not looking at revenue in this instance. I'm just looking at the expenses, and that's not an expense to carry over. And I'll go down the list. You can go down equipment, office rental, insurance, contracted travel, custodial services. You know, and when I look and I say, okay, so we're going to probably have some additional incremental expenses for, you know, any new administration, which would be books. The building itself, the SAU building, does have some natural gas expenses, which were previously reimbursed by the SAU to Timberlane. So now that's going to be an out-of-pocket expense. Some postage expenses, course reimbursement, supplies. New equipment, there's a fingerprinting machine. I don't know what the status of that is going to be, if that's going to stay with SAU 55. My presumption is that it will. So that fingerprinting machine may be a piece of equipment that needs to be acquired. There are some telephone expenses, electrical services, which again were previously SAU budget items, which Timberlane would pay for but be reimbursed for. So those are incremental adds because there will not be the offsetting revenue for those line items. Conference and travel expense, really that's more of a personnel line, and we have conference and travel workshop expenses for each of our labor groups or unions. And this would be an incremental add because we really don't have anywhere to capture those expenses for administration. We have contracted services, which is a courier, I guess a courier that we use between our buildings to deliver timely and sensitive documents between the buildings. That would continue on, and probably with a little bit less need for hours and time, and some technology services expenses as well, that would be part of that budget overall. So again, it's not an apples to apples. It's not a one-for-one. This isn't the typical budget report that you would see, but in terms of actually looking at what it's going to look like to integrate those SAU 55 expenses into the Timberlane district budget, I think this is how those expenses are now and how they would transfer into the budget. And again, they're going to be a grouping, a series of different budget lines. They're already in those lines, in fact, but my goal is that this document puts everything in one tidy place for review. I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments. I know it's helpful with Dr. Farah here, with Brian Boyle here as well.
Thank you, Jeff. So I'm just looking at this. I have a question on, so the positions starting with business operations coordinator down to HR coordinator, are all those positions, are they showing up somewhere else, or?
No.
Specifically, like the transportation coordinator, is that just going to be a you know, in a salary line in the regular Timberlane regional budget?
Nope, that's a non-budgeted item anywhere in the budget.
Okay. Do we not need a transportation coordinator anymore, or?
I don't know, it's not in the budget.
Well, I think of that decision been made, but Todd, I think some of these questions you're asking, I don't, Jess,
Dr. Cochran can weigh in on this. This is the staffing per the withdrawal plan. So I'll let Dr. Cochran weigh in on that.
One of the most onerous tasks for busing is always the mapping out of the bus routes. And it's actually built into our contract with First Student. They provide that. We have tended to do it ourselves, trying to get a little bit more functionality out of that position. We're going to take much of the position and those responsibilities and slide it into another position. We're still some discussion of that, but we still have some functionality there that we have to provide. We believe that we can get that out of a change in position, and that's the reason. If you look at most districts, they do not have that position. And in fact, Salem, who's very close to us and very similar in size, has a similar situation where it's one position that is split between that responsibility and another responsibility. So we're basically mirroring what it is that Salem does. So I've made some calls and looked at how much capacity we need.
Okay.
Is this position that you're referring to in Salem, are any of these private contractors, or are they all in-house and they're just job descriptions that are parceled out in-house?
I'm sorry, can you run that by me again?
The comparison that you just drew to Salem, are these individuals public employees, or is a percentage of the duties carried out done so by a private entity?
No, it's a Salem employee in the SAU office.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. And as it pertains to how we're going to incorporate the former SAU budget kind of into our one single budget, some of these lines down below here, I know you mentioned audit and school board expense, like legal services, for instance, the $61,197, is that now going to be part of the school board legal line?
Yeah, the legal line that we have currently is in the school board budget. We'll be looking at that, I believe, is the next department to be looking at. So there would just be one line. We wouldn't have another line under the superintendent line for that. So.
Todd, to speak to that question, the school board is recommending that we increase the legal line in the school board budget by $30,000. I don't anticipate we're going to have the same amount of legal fees as a single district SAU that we did as a multi-district SAU, where one of the boards was suing the SAU board. So, but conversely, we are in a situation right now where we have 4 bargaining units and a myriad of legal questions pertaining to COVID. So we felt that it would be prudent to increase the Timberlane budget, but there's no more SAU legal line.
Right. Yeah, I did see that in the school board meeting, Kim, and I've done a little analysis on my own, just on the last 5 years. It does look like we've really been under budgeting that line quite a bit, and especially last year where it was 175% over what we had budgeted. So I saw that you guys raised it up to 120. But I think as a committee, we're going to want to probably take a good historical analysis on that, like we do with all the lines. Because I don't like under budgeting things if we can avoid it, just like I don't like over budgeting things. And I certainly don't want to, put a number in there that's going to, end up doubling over the next year.
I agree with you, Todd, but the issue I have here with trying to have a discussion about this is as a board member, a lot of what goes on at the legal level is not something that we can share publicly. So in some sense, you've got to take it on faith that what happened the past 2 years was an anomaly.
Okay.
And it's up to you, but I
All
can't,
right.
obviously, you know, that there are things that the board members cannot, that I can't share publicly that lead me to believe that the last 2 years of the legal line was an anomaly.
That's
And,
one way to
and,
say
you
it.
know, there was a board discussion about how much to increase it and why. And I can tell you right now that we're burning through between 10 and 12,000 a month in legal fees at the Timber Lane level between the unions and the COVID issues that we have to deal with. And obviously we deal with special education a lot in terms of legal to make sure we're doing the right thing by students.
And
Completely understand. And look, COVID adds a different element to where predicting what happened in the past, you know, and using that as a basis for what's going to happen in the future makes it incredibly difficult for everyone across the entire budget. So it's duly noted, and I appreciate that context, Ken.
Thank you.
Brian?
Well, I just wanted to piggyback what Kim was saying, that when you're talking about a legal line, it's just so unique per year. It's one of the few things, Todd, that it's hard to look at an historical perspective. You know, it's almost illogical when you try to compare different years. You know, you just where I think when you look at the spend rate, the 10 to 12,000 a month, that might be more accurate. What's been going on for the last 6 months than trying to go over the last 36 months. When you have a couple of claims and settlements, those are unique.
I agree, Brian, but I will just point out that we took a few lines last year that traditionally hadn't been looking at in a historical context, and we used that as a justification to, you know, come in with a really solid budget. And so it's not just legal. I mean, I'd really like to, as a committee, take a look at everything with a hard look, and try to avoid, under budgeting things and having that come out of surplus. I'd like it to be representative of, you know, what we think it might actually be. And I take it under consideration. If you think 120 sounds like a solid number, then, you know, then maybe we'll look at historical a little bit less than we would normally in any other line. But I definitely want to, you know, for us to, you know, do kind of a deep analysis like we did last year and really come out with as true a number as we possibly can. And look, we can't predict the future. You know, I mean, we could be sued by 10 people in the next, you know, 3 months because we didn't go back to school or because we did. And I get it. And I just want to make sure that we're not, you know, seeing lines like, you know, that are 175 either way, right? Above or below.
Sure.
I think that's our job to make sure that we don't have big, huge swings like that if we can avoid them.
Sure.
All right. So anyone else with any questions?
I just want one comment. We heard it iterated a couple times that the main drivers of the legal line was COVID and the unions. I'm not looking to get into a debate, but I don't think that's close to accurate.
Oh, I did not say that. That is not what I said. I said those were part of the issues that we have right now are COVID and the unions that are driving what the spend rate is right now. We don't need to get into a debate. Clearly, there were other issues that drove the legal line, especially at the SAU level up. Having the Hampstead board sue the SAU board multiple times was one of the issues. Having the superintendent sue the SAU board for comp time was another issue. Having the superintendent state that there was a hostile work environment, which was not the case, drove the legal budget up for the SAU. So
Well,
yes,
these are
there were
these are
clearly
legal
other
issues.
items that drove those.
These are
budget
legal issues that you previously just said you couldn't comment on.
No, those
All
are
I'm
not the
saying is,
ones.
if I may finish, our teachers and educators have been demonized enough. That wasn't your intent. I believe, Dr. Farah, that your intent was not to demonize the educators, but to say the cost driving of the legal line are the collective bargaining units. I just have to draw a flag on that. We can agree to disagree. I know your intent was not to malign the educators. There are certainly other cost drivers that are much higher, but I just wanted to make my opinion heard that I don't believe they deserve the blame.
That is not a blame, Mr. Sherwood. Let me respond to that. That is not a blame. That's a fact. There's no disputing that if we were going to be fair to our CBAs, that we engaged legal counsel. That is not, I don't mean to disparage those people at all. In fact, I'm fine, or I'm happy that they've decided to move in that direction, but for us to not engage legal would be malfeasance on the part of the board. So I don't know how you took that from what I said, but I just want to clarify that for you. The items that I said that drove the legal budget are not the ones that I can't discuss. Obviously, I'm only discussing items that have been publicly disclosed. There are a lot of other legal issues that I can't state anything about. So for you to state that I just disclosed something I shouldn't have, those are all a matter of public record, Mr. Sherwood. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else have any comments? All right. Well, we will certainly take every presentation that we've heard tonight under consideration as we move forward towards wrapping this all up in the coming months and putting together a solid, responsible, and hopefully a budget that that rewards the taxpayers as well as the students and the education, like we like to do every year. I'm just looking at the agenda here. Next on the agenda is other business. Jeff, is there any other business that you are aware of?
Well, there is no other business, but I would like to actually thank Dr. Farah, because we did actually have the school board budget as a separate budget, but we really only have one change. I've screen shared that out with you. And that really.
Oh, did I miss that? I missed that. Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's hard because the SAU budget is sort of that standalone, and to what I was speaking to earlier, some of those costs are already captured in other areas of my budget or other areas of the budget, but they're not all captured in one spot. So really the previous schedule was to show how those costs integrate into the district. But for the school board itself, really there's only that increase that Dr. Farah just addressed of 30,000. And we had addressed the issue of the $2,000 in school board dues previously. So that's the school board report. That's the 30,000 and the 2,000 for school board dues. So that works for me. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, since I missed that one and we didn't quite make it to other business, is there any comments or questions on the official school board budget? Okay. And since we don't have any other business, I think that is probably going to be a wrap, folks. It is 8:41. Can we have a motion? Michael's on mute, but he motioned.
Second.
Motion to adjourn. There we go. So this meeting's officially adjourned, 8:41 p.m. Enjoy your evening, everyone, and we'll